What is up, my Nova Kingdom? It's Nova King back again. And I know, look at this. It's not a stream upload from Twitch, which you should go follow me at Nova Kings 117 over on Twitch, please. Appreciate you. Anyway, that's not what this is. It's not a Twitch clip. This is a YouTube special video. This is a YouTube exclusive video that I'm doing. And you know what? It's about a very special topic to me as well. That being Berserk. Now, Berserk has been a crazy thing for my channel because I've done the one video I did on it, my first ever video when I first started reading the series, has like 1.4 thousand views on it, right? And that's a lot for a guy like me. That's very humbling and very cool to see, and I'm just super thankful to be in the position to have even gotten to that point with that. And I love that, and it was super cool. There was a lot of feedback on the video, super awesome stuff. And then I did my Eclipse video, and that one's got like 100 or so views, and it's still going up, and people comment on it. So, and honestly, you know, not just the fact that it does well on YouTube, but I love Berserk as a series, really. I truly have such a deep-seated love for this series now. And I just kind of want to share that with you guys, and kind of share my journey as I go with you guys, the more experienced readers, those who have known the story. I want to give my first account of what I've read to you guys, and kind of give my first impressions as I go and catch up through the series. So we are on the Lost Children's arc. That's the next big thing from where I kind of was at, you know, that everyone kind of talks about. Well, sometimes not so much. I've heard that it's kind of hit or miss. Some people really love the Lost Children arc, and then some people think it's kind of some see it as very underrated. It's not very talked about as much, but so yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Lost Children arc in Berserk today. And you know, if you guys enjoy the video, leave a like, leave a comment. I love to hear from you guys. I love this. I love the communication and the feedback and all that. It's super great. If you enjoy the video, give it a like, and let me know if you want to see more videos like this where I talk about my journey through the Berserk arcs and chapters. So for this one, I kind of had to go back and I had to reread a little bit. So I had to kind of like reread a bunch of my books and stuff because it's been a little while since I've read the Lost Children arc, because I'm continuing to read to this day. So it's not super fresh in my mind. So I went and read it through again and kind of gave it a glance, and I think it's honestly one of my favorite arcs in this story in Berserk. It's fantastic. It does great character, you know, I think it has great character development for Guts as a person. I think it has, you know, a fantastic theme and lesson to it with, like, you know, children and their development and what they can become given the right or wrong circumstances. Very cool stuff, as always, with this story, with this series. Very, very cool story aspects that are just really well knit into this awesome looking franchise. So let's get with that. You know, it's gonna be a long one, so without any further ado, let's get into it. So we're back to the present, right? Last time we had spoken, I had to go through the eclipse. No buenas, okay? It's bad, but it's good. It's good though. It's good, but it's bad. But we did that. And then we got back to where it was for a full circle. We understood why Guts became the Black Swordsman and who he was and his past and his journey now, again, you know, fighting apostles, trying to figure out more about the God Hand. And we cut back to after, you know, the Snake Baron, the Slug Baron, all that stuff, where we're back with Guts and Puck just, you know, hanging out. And so we're back to the present and everything. It's about 2 years. I think they go back 2 years to where the present is. So it's been about 2 years since the eclipse and all that kind of happened. And we open up to a bunch of these bandits hanging around this like tree that they're talking about. It's like super cursed and stuff. And then they got this young girl, you know, held captive, and they're being all gross with her because, you know, it's Berserk. Someone's bound to be gross to some underage girl at one point or another. It's just how it is. So we have that, and then when this guy is messing with this girl, we get one of, in my opinion, one of the coolest shots of Guts as the thunder and lightning strikes, and it lights up, and we see Guts just sitting under this tree, just like super menacingly, just kind of like sitting there. Like he's been there for like this entire time and no one even knew. And he just gives this like foreboding presence, right? Super cool stuff. And he's just trying to rest and, you know, kind of hang out for a bit there. And, you know, they're kind of being assholes to him, which bandits do. And then Guts kind of smacks him around a little bit, you know, bit bop, a couple of them. And he's like, listen, y'all better leave. You don't want to die. And like, they took it as, all right, this dude about to square up. So they try and fight him, right? And Guts notices the old brand of sacrifice, you know, the old brand of sacrifice, starting to swell a little bit, starting to hurt a little bit. It's like, oh shit, well, I don't know what's about to happen. And then the tree that we're talking about that's cursed definitely was indeed cursed. It's a possessed demon tree. Because everything in this story can be a demon. From little girls, trees, and horses. But we haven't gotten to that part yet. We don't talk about the horse. We don't talk about that yet, okay? Relax. We're not there yet. I am, sadly, but we're not talking about it today. Why? Why'd I have to see it? Anyway. So demon tree starts like going off and like, you know, attacking the bandits and all that stuff. And this girl is just like, what fuck? And then Guts comes in with this awesome shot. I think I have a picture of it that I'll show you. Comes in with this awesome shot where he like swings the sword from behind her and kind of like just the wind like blows her hair and shit from his like force going right past her to like collide with this tree and save her from being swallowed up by said tree monster. He does a really cool move where it's like it's got him, and then he does the old "oh no, you got me," boom, arm cannon, then spins around with the recoil of that and slices the tree up. Super cool. I love the amount of choreography you can get out of these still images, right? Like it's a still, it's a picture. You wouldn't imagine much movement, but there ends up being so much of it in this story. Hey, excuse me. I'm trying to record a video right now. But super cool stuff. I think the fluid motion that we can pick up from this like manga is incredible. So we get to that. My brother's yelling at people on Call of Duty. That's pretty dope. The girl, if I remember right, gets like freaked out or something like that when she sees Puck, because she thinks he's like, oh, Misty, you're like a fairy, fucking fairy or elf from the Misty Valley, and they're like, what you talking about? You know, like what you mean? Yeah, there is a slight segment where a bunch of apostles, the like elf queen that we see like super like before with Rickert, when it's not like in the movies, but in the manga, Rickert's like when he's like coming back from like some reconnaissance mission, a bunch of the Band of the Hawk are dead, and it was a bunch of these apostles, and I think the lady, the elf queen, and Slug were both there at that scene. So it's her. They show up, and you know they start, you know, getting with the bandits and things like that had flee. They had ran off when Guts was taking care of the tree monster, and they got messed up by elf, quote unquote elves. So we'll get back to that. We'll get back to what happened to those guys later. So then this girl named Jill, she takes Guts back to her village, you know, kind of as just a thing to like, you know, he ends up taking her back, and you know, he would have a place to kind of get some information and all that kind of stuff. Which there's another cool panel where like she's wearing his cape, which I think is just kind of cute that he would give that to her. I don't know. It's just, I love the interaction between Guts and Jill in this. It just, I think it just does a really good job of showing how much of a human Guts still is and a person he still is. I think it's super cool. But yeah, they show up to her village and everything. She gets back and her mother's excited to see her. Everyone's like, you know, super excited to see that she had made it back or whatever had happened. And her father comes out and he's pissed drunk and he's an asshole like a lot of other people in this book. And, you know, Jill starts like disrespecting him and, you know, saying shit to him, talking shit to him. And he starts slapping around and everything like that. Talking about the old war days. he's one of those guys. You know, he's, you know, back in his day, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't mess with him. He crazy. He back in the war days. And then, Puck kind of intervenes to stop it, but now the village is aware that there's this like little like elf thing around with the man who brought Jill back, and that he's harboring this thing, and they're terrified of Puck for some reason. And Jill tries to stop it, you know, saying, "Wait, don't panic. They saved me. This, that, and the other." And you know, Guts gets ready to fight. Guts is like, shit, maybe if I kill a few of them, they'll get the point. And like, they're like, whoa, let's not do that. But he sees Jill and how she's panicking, and he makes the conscious decision to not make a scene and start killing people in front of this little girl. So he takes off and flees with, you know, the village. And Jill eventually finds where him and Puck had gotten to hide from everybody. And she's like, you know, go hide in this old mill, and I'll come by and see you at night, and we'll talk. And, you know, Guts warns her, you know, he's like, don't come till, like, closer to morning, because, like, you do not come here before dawn, no matter what. You know, very, very insistent on that. She's like, okay, shit, all right, dude. And So Jill hides that night. We get a little segment of her that night where she's back in her house and she's dealing with like her father and his drunk friend and just the nasty shit we come to expect, and she kind of blocks that off and stops this his drunk friend from getting involved. But and she just kind of like cuddles with Guts' Kate by her bed and everything, which is very 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 somber but very cute kind of scene to see. Jill then goes with like a little basket of food to the mill to go find Guts sleeping in what is now a destroyed mill. It's kind of like wrecked up and shit and like stuff, daylight's kind of peering through it. And she kind of comes over to see him sleeping, and and Puck's like, yeah, he hadn't been sleeping very long. I'd let him sleep for a bit. Covers him with his cape, and then just kind of sits next to him, just sits with him, kind of, in awe of him, wondering what kind of man that, harbors an elf and has this big sword, and like, what kind of life has this man come from, wondering about a life outside of her own is kind of what it seemed like. Guts then awakens to kill like a demon thing that was like trying to get up on him, just like smashes his hand into it and wakes him up, and he's like, what's up? And he finds Jill sleeping against him, like kind of like just held it up, leaning on him. And I think it's kind of nice because I feel like Guts in the past, right, like Snake Baron arc, like very beginning, Guts would have been like, bitch, get the fuck up off me. But no, he kind of just he looks at her and kind of sighs and just kind of lets her stay there. And granted, how long this would have been, I don't know, because fucking she wakes up because Puck falls on her head and knocks her awake. So who knows how long he would have just let her chill there. But he does let her stay and just kind of rest. And I think it shows good development on his end and him kind of being more, I don't know, just his humanity kind of showing through from time to time with this little girl. She wakes up. Gus immediately starts asking questions about like what this Misty Valley is, and she describes it being a place where elves reside, or at least have resided, in that the creatures like elves had been ravaging the city and its crops and livestock and things like that, among with taking people, like attacking people and taking the children away. Pretty messed up stuff. And Puck's like, what? That doesn't sound right. What you putting this bad rep on my people for? Like, Puck's all upset about it. And before they can really talk too much about it, Guts starts getting that feeling again. And he's like, oh shit, what's going on? So he goes outside, and they all kind of rush outside to see this huge swarm of these elf-like creatures swarming to the village to wreak havoc there. Back at the village, we see this kid run out of his house after his parents are like eating in front of him and shit like that, and nobody goes to save him. They're like, oh no, Thomas, as he's like running for his life, but they won't go outside. And he runs into Guts, and Guts is like, if you want revenge, like that's what you want, I can help you out, and how he does this is by he pikes the kid up on his sword. And so the elves are attracted to it, right? So they run through the village and everything like that, and this kid's getting dragged around on this sword as he's about to get taken by these elf things. And they eventually get lure them to a barn where he kind of shuts, they get in, shut everything, and drops the kid, and they kind of get settled in there. And Guts starts fighting the these insect-like demon things until eventually his filling his arm cannon up, and it was I think it had too much powder or something like that, and it just went off, and he used it and basically blew the whole barn up. It was on fire and everything like that. And he goes careening outside the back wall, and the kid kind of follows out, and they both just kind of sit there looking out on this barn on fire, just enjoying the bug barbecue bonanza together as a unit. Guts is that's a pretty nice sight, and the kid's just if you say so, bro. I don't know what your deal is, but I'm just trying to get out of here. Oh my god, it was just kind of a unique situation, because Guts is trying to oh, get you revenge. We can get your get revenge and all that stuff, and the kid's just I'm just trying to survive, But it was kind of a funny interaction between them as they watch the barn just burn, and Guts is yeah, that's pretty sick. And after this, one of the things that's between that kind of happens before we get back into the Lost Children arc is they sneak in the Berserk prototype section of the manga, an early submission of the series that we've grown to love. But for time's sake and for what we're talking about today, we're gonna skip it. But don't you worry about it. Your sweet little head. We're gonna get back to it and review it as its own beast on another day, because that is something I think is fun and important to look at, is kind of where Berserk started in its prototype. So maybe we'll do a video about that as well, kind of talk about that. So back to the matter at hand. Guts and the others are visited by the Elf Queen herself. She arrives with a bunch of her posse after this happens, and he starts, Guts starts like kind of fighting with her, but Puck is warning him. He's like, all these like elves are kids, like these are all children, like human children that have been turned into these things. And Jill kind of believes that, and she knows she believes she knows who the queen is, this apostle elf, and gets in the way and puts herself in front of Guts and calls to her as Rosine. That's how I vote. Rosine. It's not Rosalind. Is it Rosalind? Is it Rosalind? I don't know. Rosalind. But she kind of calls her name, and she sees this and she decides to just book it with her elves and leave the village. The villagers then come upon the scene and they see the barn burned and everything like that, and they see like just the carnage that had been there, and getting after him for using Thomas primarily. They had seen him run off with Thomas, right? So he takes off with Thomas, and they're like, how dare you use this young boy as bait. And Guts comes back with how he, this doesn't surprise me. Guts is like the king of clapbacks, right? Like, my boy's got that full counter type shit. Like, you throw something at him, he gonna hit you like 2 times harder with it, bro. Like, Guts has got the fucking, he's got the fucking callbacks ready. He clapped back hella hard by asking if even one of them unlocked their doors to go save him when he first ran out. Did any of you put your lives at risk when this boy was running for his life? And I'm like, damn, tell it to him, bro. Tell it to him. And they're like, shit, you kind of right. And they demand the children back and everything like that. And Thomas kind of goes ahead and, asking Jill to come on. But the villagers noticed in the burning barn that the corpses of all these elves that Guts had killed had returned to their normal form as kids. So there's this like burning like heap of child corpses. And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And Guts is like, yeah, I'm in some deep shit now. So he takes Jill as a hostage in order to kind of like escape he's in bad shape too. He gets hit by Rosalind, I think, and she like poisons him. He's poisoned right now, so he's kind of like, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's disoriented. So he just kind of takes her as a hostage with his knife and just kind of like, demands to leave and everything like that. Once they get out of the village and they kind of get a good distance out, he releases her and apologizes for what he had done, and then heads off to the Misty Valley. Jill saying she might know who the queen is and that it might be her friend and that she wants to go with him. And Guts is like, I'm gonna have to kill that friend of yours. Like, if she really is what I think she is, she has to die, regardless of if she's your friend or not. And I don't think you want to be around for that, so she should just stay away. And he kind of goes off on his own. And Jill sits there and kind of contemplates, thinking things with Guts would still be better than the life she's been stuck with, a life that's never changed for the better. And Puck also leaves Guts because Guts starts being a dick to Puck once again and starts like, pretty obvious. Like, we've seen him be a dick to Puck before, but he was like, I want you to fucking leave, like, leave me alone, kind of, And Puck comes back with like one of like the greatest fourth wall breaks ever in my opinion, where he's like, bro, listen, you need me around. This story be hella way too dark if I wasn't involved. You know what I mean? Like, you need the comedic relief, or else this story would just be too dark. And it was the funniest thing to me because it's so true. Like, that is Puck's sole job in this series, and I think, well, not sole purpose, but one of the biggest reasons why he's a character in this, and I think he does such a good job at it. So I thought him actually making that reference was super funny. But Guts ends up spending the night by himself, and he's kind of like trying to get better and rest as he knows he's poisoned. And all of a sudden, like, after seeing he sees it in the fire, the fucking Casca demon scary child thingy that pops out of the fire, and after that there's like a horde of these burning like children corpse type things that have been like possessed by demons and shit like that. and they're like approaching him, and he's like, and you know, he starts like hesitantly like fighting them off and doing what he has to, trying to block out the fact that these are like kids, and like that's the illusion they're at least trying to put on. And Puck and Jill end up, you know, getting together, and they both go after Guts, and Jill says she wants to go find him, and they find him going on a complete rampage. And Puck even notices, like, he's lost it. Like, he's completely zoned himself out so that he doesn't, because he knows that he's going to, like, try and, you know, resist, you know, fighting things that look like kids. So he has to completely black out himself and just go in a blood rage to even do this. And he nearly fucking, like, cuts Jill in half. Like, he swings around and tries to hurt her, but notices and stops. And he starts getting, like, tackled by a lot of these kids that are, like, on fire. So he scoops up Jill, and like they fall off a cliff together, like jump off to kind of like avoid these like kids that are like on fire and shit. And they end up like tumbling down this you know, this fairly big cliff. And Jill awakens a little later to find her on Guts, you know, after the fall. And you know, he's like, "Listen, bitch, you're heavy. Please get off me. I can't move. I've like broken everything and I cannot move." And he's like, "You shake the fairy, shake the elf, please, because like I'm dying." So you know, Puck's energy kind of heals him, and he can kind of move again. And Jill ends up telling the story of Peacath the Outcast, which is a story of that Jill and her friend Rosine had, you know, talked about and have told each other for a lot of years when they were friends together, about this, you know, child who didn't believe he belonged in a human village and thought he was an elf. So he went off to this place to go find these elves, and they told him the story of how his parents simply brought him there, and they just needed to cure his illness, but in turn became more elf-looking. But he's a human deep down, and his parents were his parents. But he was so excited and ran back, but the way time had dilated, everybody was gone, and he was by himself. He had nobody. You know, Guts kind of leaves, you know, and tells her, "Stick to your fairy tales. Don't stick around me. You know, you need to accept your own reality for what it is, and quit, you know, just trying to do whatever it can to keep her away from him. You know, like, this isn't what you want. This isn't what you think it's gonna be. You know, this isn't a fairy tale. This is the real life." And ends up like barricading Puck there as well in a little rock cage. He does not want anything to do with Puck. After he got his heal, he's like, "I'm good." So he takes off to go kind of look for this apostle and for the Misty Valley. But as he leaves, Rosalind ends up going there and finding Jill, and she kind of like, they have this reunion and everything, and talking about how she's found this perfect place for kids, and tries to convince her to go with her to the valley. And Guts can sense the demon's presence, so he rushes back and finds them. And as she's like hugging, you know, Jill and all that, Guts like comes up. He's like, "Fuck them kids, bro." About to come down heavy on him, and like cuts off Rosin's like tail or some shit. And he's like, "Oh fuck!" And she gets pissed off and flies off with Jill to the Misty Valley. And Guts kind of like looking back on it afterwards realized that for some reason he had held back. Like, he had almost known that he had held back when he shouldn't have. And that's, you know, this whole concept of like fighting these innocent children is like, it's weighing on his consciousness, and he doesn't want to do it deep down. And then Guts kind of moves toward the Misty Valley. I can't remember. Puck, I think Puck's by himself at this point. I think Puck ends up having to go by himself at this point. I don't think he goes with them. So Guts is by himself at this point, and he moves toward the valley, but before kind of entering, he has to fight the protectors of the children, who are like these adults that have been transformed to these like insectoid kind of monsters to defend the children inside of the Misty Valley. As Rosalind says, you know, that's what adults are supposed to do, is protect the children. And it's kind of that's kind of a lesson in and of itself, that Rosalind had not known what it's like, had not really known what it was like to have a real family system that cared for her. But she realized deep down that she knew that adults should protect their children, and that's how it should be. And she kind of played that out in her weird, twisted way as an apostle with these creatures. And so he has to fight a bunch of these things and all that stuff. And we kind of cut back to the Holy See, which is basically like Christianity way back when. Like, it's just this powerhouse religion that kind of rules the continent, it seems like, and they're the big church. And they arrive at this village to talk with the priest there, and they see the carnage that had been done by what the villagers called the Black Swordsman. And they speak of how they pursue this man, you know, they've had lots of reports of monsters and things like that, and they've increased over the last few years, which is because more demons are lurking around because the age of darkness is upon us, the fifth apostle kind of thing. The fifth Godhand member. So stuff is getting worse, and there's more monsters and things like that about. So they've gotten more reports. But one report that the church had kept getting for them to look into was the Black Swordsman, this man who brought nothing but disaster with him. So so at this point they think Guts is like a child murderer who burned all these kids. Like they think he's a goddamn monster. So they're kind of in hot pursuit of him, trying to figure out, you know, trying to stop him. It's pretty bad. I think we cut back to Guts then, who ends up fighting like two of the last and strongest of the protectors, who were like, one turned into like a big, like, I don't know what, he had like big pincers, not like a cockroach, but he's a big bulky like pincer looking dude. And then you had like the fucking mantis looking dude, super fast, super strong kind of combo, right? And Guts was having a hard time keeping up with him. He couldn't dent the big guy, and he couldn't even keep with the speed of the fucking mantis dude, they had been like knights in their previous life or something like that. And so he does this awesome thing where he uses the cannon again and does like a thing to get momentum to spin around with such speed and strength and velocity to where it was strong enough to cut through the big guy and quick enough to catch the mantis off and fucking murder them both in one fell swoop. Super sick. This arc does a fantastic job with, I think, having super good movement and choreography in these fights, in a thing that really shouldn't have great choreography because it's a picture, but it does it so seamlessly and so well that you really can get a good idea of the amazing feats of strength and agility that Guts can perform in these fights. So he does that. Puck ends up finding Jill in the valley. He ends up kind of converging with her at the valley that Rosalind had took her to. And they try to flee together because they find out that a lot of these fucking, you know, kids that are turned into these elves are like monsters. They're like killing each other for sport. Like Rosalind thinks in her own twisted way that she's saving all these kids by taking them to the valley and turning them into her elves, and that she's giving them a better life and things like that, when she's just twisting their soul and their body into this monstrosity that's like they're eating each other, and they think it's fun. They think it's fun to play war and kill each other. And they're like, that's fucked up. So they try and like get away from them, and they eventually run until they end up into like this tunneling system of the hatching grounds for the elves, all the egg sacs and stuff like that. And Rosalind finds them there and talks about how this is where all the elves are made, and she attempts to start like cocooning like Jill, but gets distracted by the sight of this lair being like on fire. Like there's a fire started. We cut back to the holy scene. They're kind of like, you know, they're following the carnage that Guts had made in the forest when he had killed all these protectors, and they were making ground pretty quick. And they just think it's awful what he's done. And she says something about how he's like the hawk of darkness or something like that when she's saying how she'll find him. So they're because they know of the eclipse and what it is and what came with it, they're believing that it's coalescing that the Black Swordsman must be the Hawk of Darkness, Griffith of the God Hand. And I'm like, shit. Well, not really. That's actually not correct, but good try. So they think that Guts is like this fucking... They think something nuts. Like he is like... They think he's like a God Hand member, it seems like. Which again, with the timing and the correlation, and they know of the eclipse, and they touched on that. It makes sense. I get where they're coming from, but yeah, so that's a problem. Guts kind of fights off a bunch of the elves back at the lair, you know, and he's having to like, when he's getting like consumed with the fire and stuff, he's like poking these egg sacs, and like they're like dumping on him, and he's got like these kid corpses like drenched on him as he's like getting put out, and he's just it was nasty. It was nasty. He was doing what he had to do. It was pretty nasty. I'm gonna be honest with you. And, you know, Guts, you know, turns his focus on Rosalind, and she ends up turning it, she transforms into like her super like scary, super fast bug like apostle form. And Guts can't keep up with her. She's like dipping up and down like a fighter jet, doing like strafing runs in this tunnel, you know, coming out through the top and coming back in, and Guts can't keep up with it. And eventually his arm gets skewered as he's like flown into the sky. And like they're up there, and she's like talking about like, oh, you're not that bad. You're you're pretty handsome. And boom, cannon in the face, bitch! Don't talk about how I'm handsome. How dare you? Which again, it's Guts' trademark move. I'm gonna pretend like I'm dead, so you get real close to me, and then I'm gonna blow you up. So he like blows a good chunk of her off, and you know, they drop and everything like that, and like the whole forest on fire at this point, right? Like the fire is spread and the forest is catching on and everything like that. And Guts is realizing that he's still going too easy, and he can't get the thought out of his head that he's killing children, and he tells himself that he has to forego his feelings and just focus on nothing but the fact that he has to kill her. He has to like pep talk himself into this as he's wrapping his hand up just to hold his sword because he just got skewered. So he's like having to bandage the sword to his hand. Guts eventually, you know, trying to figure out a game plan as Rosine's like, you know, Rosine's like trying to find him. He ends up like using Jill as bait. He knows that if Jill's in danger, she'll go to save her. So Jill's getting like engulfed by these flames that doesn't know what's going on, and like one of those like trees falls on her or is about to, and Rosine shows up and stops it and is immobile. And Guts like comes up and stabs her in the back while she's, you know, trying to save her, and you know, but he did save her though. Jill, I remember Guts like he pokes one of the sacks, or he does something to where it pours off onto Jill where she's safe. So he did keep her safety in mind and did have a plan to save her. Although it fucked Jill up because she was covered in some like kid corpse and she started losing her mind. It was bad. Like Jill was about to break. Like and there was a section in the manga where you can tell that she is about to break mentally from just everything she's witnessed. She's covered in this fucking slime. This kid corpse is on her. She's freaking out. It's awful, right? But we go back and excuse me. Jeez. God, people know I'm recording. Or maybe I should just silence my phone. But they go back and she tries to like, you know, get Guts again, and she like goes for his head. And there's this crazy moment where she thinks she skewers him right through the brains, but Guts like manages to feint it just enough to where it goes through his fucking mouth, like his jaw, like it hot claw, like right at the other side of his face. It was like it looks great in the manga. Like the amount of well drawn shots of just Guts alone in this arc is stupid. Like there are so many like just awesome, like hopefully some of them will be in the video that you can see, but there's just so many good panels where Guts just looks so fantastic. And like I will never be able to get over how good this book looks and how good this series is drawn, and I don't think it'll ever be able to be replicated. I don't think any animation studio could replicate what a fucking masterpiece this is and how good it looks. I can make a whole video just about how good this fucking book looks. But you know, he gets kind of skewered, and then he still like manages to cut her again, and they both fall. He like plummets into a pond, and you know, she kind of, you know, falls somewhere else. And she's pretty beaten up at this point, you know, like she's pretty beaten up, and she's like thinking about how she found the valley, and nothing was, when she was a kid, when she initially ran away, you know, Jill told the story of how Rosine had ran away from the village to get away from her family and to go to the elves and all that. And Guts had even told her that if she had a behelit, which is what she did have, what, you know, they were talking about, that she probably went and ended up sacrificing something in her, you know, sadness and grief over not finding the elves and not having a place to go for this apostle form. It's like her parents find her, and you know, the dad starts beating on her for running away, and in that moment, in her darkest moment, she sacrifices her parents to become this apostle. And that's kind of like a moment we get to see in her mind as she's, you know, in her last moments. And Jill finds her and tries to comfort her as she's passing on, for, you know, succumbing to her wounds. And Guts just, I don't know if I have this one, but there's a scene where he just kind of like lunges out of the water. He just lunges out, and he goes up, and like he's pissed. He's had enough. Like he's been having to fight these damn kids for too long. He rolls up, and he's gonna like kill, you know, to land the finishing blow to kill her. And Jill gets on top of her and tries to stop him, and even Puck's like, don't do it, and they're like freaking out, and Rosine can't fight. She's dying. And before anything can happen, the Holy See arrives. They show up, and they start like shooting at Guts and everything, like save the children and all that. And Guts is like, fuck. So he takes off. He just bails. And Puck kind of goes off, and then they kind of get gathered up, and as they're, Jill's still there with Rosine. Rosine gets up, and she knows she has to flee as well. She, that she has to also get out of there, and she flies off without even listening to Jill. She's like in her own mind, in like this dream state where she's like, I have to go home, and she goes, and as she soars past this final hill, she dies. She dies thinking of what's gonna be for dinner at home. She's hungry. What's gonna be for dinner? Thinking about her family. In these final moments where she had nothing left to cling to, that was what she went back to. She imagined her family and being with her family, imagining that it was all just one big dream, and that she was going to be able to wake up and go back to the people that had loved her and that she loved. But she soars past this hill and dies soon after. We don't actually see her die. We see her, soar past, and that's it. That's all we see. But it can be assumed because of her injuries that she had passed after that point. Which is terrible and sad in its own right, because what happens to an apostle once they die because of the contract and them giving up their soul. It's awful. Jill goes after Guts. Like her father had helped the Holy See, and he's like, oh fucking come on, let's go. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving yet. And he goes, she goes to chase after Guts again. And she eventually finds him and Puck. I think Puck had been there, where they had kind of found this hiding place to kind of hide from the Holy See as they're searching for him. And she finds him in this like place, like cave or something like that. And, she talks about how she wishes to go away with him. And she doesn't care where it is or what it is, but she wants to go with him and to not leave her there. And she like hugs him and everything. And it's super sad. And it's just super deep, because like you can tell what she's gone through and how much she's gone through to want to get to the point where she's so desperate to leave and get out of this place. And Guts just, he kind of takes a step back, and he's like, I want you to look around me, the darkness that surrounds me. And she sees these again, I hope I have this in the video, but it's just behind him is these demons plastered on the walls, and like everything kind of oozing out as he just stands there, and she's looking on in horror. It's this awesome shot of just what kind of is trying to consume him. And she's freaking out, and these demons are getting on her, and all of a sudden Guts kind of comes to and slashes at them, and she's freaking out. The cloak comes over her, and he embraces her and holds her and says that you cannot simply escape your life, and you must face your own battles on your own, as I have my own. And they have this super sweet moment, and it's my absolute favorite panel in the whole arc, where he just kind of cloaks her and holds her and embraces her and tells her that I have my own battles to face, and that my life is a battlefield that you should not have to go through ever. No one should have to. As a man who's gone through it myself, I don't want anybody else to, especially a child. And that you can't simply escape your life. You have to face it head on. And he eventually, steps back quickly, as quickly as he had come, and wanders off into the darkness, and just tells her to go back and to fight her own battles. And it's super emotional, because she's sad and she's screaming out. She doesn't want him to leave, but he knows that he can't have her come with. He knows that, and he knows not just for the sake that she'll be in danger, but that she can't run away from her life. She can't just simply run away from everything, and that she has to face it in some way, learn how to fight her own battles, no matter what that is, but learn how to persevere through that. And because of what he had said to her there, and kind of left her with this parting message after he just vanished into the darkness, she had kind of gained this sense of perseverance, that she could push on. Puck asks if she'll be all right, because he's still there with her, as she looks on at the clouds being parted by the sun, and she says that I don't have the strength to wield the sword like Guts, or the courage to run away like Rosine did, but I can fight and kick and scream until I get through life, and I can fight for myself and create a good life for myself wherever I am. That's kind of, I feel like, the lesson she was imparted after after Guts had kind of left her with that no matter what is going on in her life or what she is given in life, that she can push through and win her own battles and create a good life for herself, regardless of where she is or what she has to deal with. It's just a matter of her pushing through and making that life for herself and enjoying that life for herself. And Puck kind of takes off and says, I can't leave the guy by himself. So, and takes off to go reconverge with Guts. And that's kind of where it leaves. The next one is, I can't remember the name, but we do get into the next arc, which is fantastic too. I'm not completely done with it, which is why I'm not making a video quite yet, but I'm close. And it's fantastic so far. This whole series is fantastic, but as a whole, I love the Lost Children arc. I think it does a great job of showing Guts' character in kind of his softer moments and softer places where he's dealing with Jill, and especially at the very end when he embraces her and kind of reassures her that she can push through her life and get through to the other side with perseverance. And not to the extent, not nearly to the extent that what he does, but in that same vein though, Guts is fighting and he's fighting against destiny to have a better outcome and to find answers for himself. And that's kind of what he imparts Jill with, and that's kind of what she takes from it going forward, living her life in this little village where she's to fight her own little battle. I think it's a super cool theme and a super cool lesson to have imparted at the very end of the arc. Visually, I don't even have to tell you, it just looks phenomenal from start to finish. So many cool shots, so many good shots that will be in the video hopefully that are just phenomenal, that I loved. And again, I think it's super good for Guts, the character. I think it does a great job of showing like this development of kids and like the I guess just like how kids can go, like Rosine had just been a victim of fate and wasn't an evil person, but because of her sorrow and what had drug her down, she made the decision, similarly to someone like Griffith, to give up what she had for a possibly better life because she didn't know how to cope regardless. And Jill is kind of the opposite of that, to where she's not going to try and run away and run from her problems as Rosine did, as she ran and became something inhuman, whereas Jill is trying to find it in herself to fight whatever battle she has to make a better life for herself. And that's kind of the differentiating side between those two, and it's just kind of a sign to it's more just a lesson in kids' vulnerability and kids just children's, I guess, how their influence, how easily they can be influenced, and how delicate they are at that stage, and just kind of how they kind of see and perceive life and how they choose to handle it in different ways. I think it's a super cool lesson. I think it's a super cool concept. I think the Lost Children arc is a super cool arc, honestly. I've heard that it's underrated and some people aren't super huge fans of it. I love it. I think visually it's fantastic. Storytelling, it's fantastic. I think it does a great job all around of just being another phenomenal arc within the story of Berserk. Again, one of my favorites of all time that I've read so far. The next arc is also phenomenal, really good. I'm getting close to the end of that, and we'll make another video. Again, if you want. Again, that's totally up to you guys. I'm not going to keep making Berserk reviews if no one wants to watch them. So leave a like and leave a comment to let me know that you want to keep seeing this series, because I'm more than happy to do it. Berserk has quickly become one of my favorite mediums of all time. Media of all time. I love it. Super cool, and it's inspired me in a lot of my own ways of writing and writing fantasy things and things like that. Super cool stuff. So let me know if you want to see that, because I'm more than happy to keep going with the different arcs as I continue to read and get caught up in the story that is Berserk. And I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. I had a great time compiling this and having an excuse to go reread the Lost Children arc and just putting this video together. It's been a good time, and it's really nice to have an excuse to get back into the whole YouTube grind and making YouTube videos other than just my stream stuff. So this is just a nice feeling, and I'm glad to kind of be back in the seat recording videos for you guys. So I truly hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry this is drug on. It's kind of a long review because it's a pretty detailed arc, but regardless, I hope you enjoyed it. If, again, like I said, if you're feeling generous, leave that like and comment. Let me know if you want to see more of this stuff. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Nova Kingdom. I'd love to have you here. I always appreciate the support. And yeah, thanks so much for watching the video. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, look out for more Berserk reviews and Berserk type things. Let me know if you want to see any specific kind of Berserk video or just things like that. Give me some ideas and I will work with it, because I truly love this series and want to take it many different ways if possible. So thanks so much, guys. Again, I really do appreciate it. Remember to stay positive, enjoy life. You only get one shot at it. It's your boy Nova King 17, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.